In June 1962, Alcatraz guards discovered that 3 prisoners had vanished, leaving only lifelike dummy heads on their beds. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, known for their daring escapes, had accomplished the impossible, disappearing from America's most secure prison. This legendary breakout would become one of history's most perplexing mysteries. Lawrence. On June 12, 1962, on Alcatraz Island in San Francisco Bay. So we have 3 prisoners, Frank Morris, John Anglin, and his brother Clarence. One day at 7 a.m., they do not respond to the roll call, so a guard checks on all 3. He notices all 3 of them lying in their beds, so he walks over to Frank's cell and taps him on the head with his nightstick, causing Frank's head to fall off. This guard received the shock of his life. He probably believed he had just decapitated the man. Lawrence. All 3 prisoners have vanished from their cells, leaving 3 lifelike papier-mâché heads behind. This immediately leads to chaos. These prisoners are no longer with us. How could these inmates have escaped this high-security prison? They discover that another prisoner, Alan West, also has a papier-mâché head. Lawrence West admits he helped escape, but didn't get out of his cell. In exchange for leniency, he agrees to tell investigators exactly how his fellow inmates accomplished the impossible. Amazingly, these 3 men were able to leave the prison complex. Alcatraz had the reputation of being the most secure prison in the nation. Even if you leave Alcatraz, you'll have to deal with 6 watchtowers and a 20-foot barbed wire fence. Even if you survive, San Francisco Bay's dark and turbulent waters await. Dramatic music. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers arrived at Alcatraz with a long history of escapes. Frank Morris is a decent career criminal. He'd been in and out of prison since he was 13, primarily for robbery. He was such a skilled escape artist that some dubbed him the Houdini of the prison system because he had escaped many facilities before being transferred to Alcatraz. John and Clarence Anglin were from the Florida and Georgia area. They were career criminals. They robbed a bank in Ohio using a toy gun. However, their attempt to escape Leavenworth Prison led to their transfer to Alcatraz. Lawrence. But according to Alan West's testimony, he is the mastermind behind this plot. Lawrence. As West tells investigators, they needed to get out of their cells and into the maintenance corridor behind. Looking inside an Alcatraz cell, there are only a few features, one of which is an air vent right below the sink. Because the facility was deteriorating and salt water wreaked havoc on the concrete, they could fashion spoons and simply scrape away the concrete around this vent. Lawrence. They work at night, watching out for each other and devising a way to conceal their work. Because these men would be widening their vents, they couldn't simply drill holes in the back of their cells. West gets green paint from his prison job and shows the other prisoners how to repaint around the vent as they remove it. It takes a lot of patience because the guards go around and conduct hourly checks. Later on, they start making papier-mâché vents to cover the holes they're making. Looking at it from the cell, you're only about 9 feet away. Simply looking at it, it appears to be the same vent that was there originally. Morris and the Anglins finally make their way through the hole for the first time, climbing up pipes to reach the top of the cell block via the maintenance hallway to inspect the vent West has chosen for the escape. However, they realize they have a problem when they reach that vent. The vent is bolted in place. Lawrence. The escapees must leave their cells for weeks, if not months, to file down the bolt that secures the roof vent. The guards, however, conduct regular nightly checks on them. To convince the guards that they are still in their cells, the escapees create fake heads for their prison beds. The dummy heads were made from whatever materials the 3 men could find. They are papier-mâché, but they also contain soap. They are also cement. For the final touch to those papier-mâché heads. Clarence Anglin uses actual human hair clippings from the barbershop to paste to the tops of the heads. Dramatic music. Lawrence. The fake heads give the escapees enough time to file down the bolt and gain access to the roof. But getting out of the building is only half of the plan. They also need to figure out how to get to the shore. Lawrence. The escapees devise an ingenious plan to convert prison raincoats into an inflatable raft with several life preservers. Looking through a popular mechanics magazine, they were able to not only figure out how to make them, but also devise a waterproof glue to keep them together in the water. They also made paddles from wood scraps and plywood they found around the prison. They steal a concertina and use it as bellows to inflate their makeshift raft. Lawrence. At around 10 p.m., Frank Morris, John Anglin, and his brother Clarence launched their makeshift raft into the treacherous waters of San Francisco Bay, never to be seen again. The following day, when it is discovered that these prisoners are missing, the main question among the prisoners, guards, and eventually the public is whether they made it. So, the FBI is called in to search. Lawrence. The investigator's best source is still in a cell on Alcatraz Island. Alan West has already been identified as the fourth escapee, or would-be escapee. He has a papier-mâché head and a false front on his vent to demonstrate it. Lawrence. After describing his clever escape plan from the cell block, West reveals the convicts' planned route. Instead of traveling 1 mile south to San Francisco, they will go 2 miles north to Angel Island. It may appear strange that the inmates would want to travel 2 miles north to another island, but it makes sense because they could have been recognized or spotted in their prison uniform in a densely populated area. Lawrence. At the time, Angel Island was home to a decommissioned missile base, which could provide an advantage for the 3 wanted men. It is being taken offline and only a few people are present at any given time. There might also be boats for the men to use to get to the mainland. Marin County, located only a 1/4 mile north of San Francisco, is the mainland. Once they arrived in Marin, Alan West claims the plan was to steal a car. Dramatic music. Lawrence. While searching the waters around Angel Island a few days after the escape, investigators discover a crucial clue that may support Alan West's testimony. There was a sealed packet of rubber raincoats so no water could enter. They could confirm their Anglin heritage because they had many Anglin family members and pictures of them. Lawrence investigators also discover another clue off Angel Island, a makeshift wooden paddle similar to the one Alan West described. Lawrence, December 31st, 1979. More than 17 years after the escape, the FBI has officially closed the case. If new leads emerge, the file is turned over to the U.S. Marshal Service. The case remained dormant until 2003. U.S. Marshal Michael Dyke decides to poke around and see if he can add anything to this well-known story. Lawrence. It's not long before Dyke discovers compelling evidence in the government documents. Michael Dyke goes back through Marin County police records and discovers a stolen car report for a 1955 blue Chevy that was reported stolen on the night of the men's escape. The first eyewitness reported seeing 3 men inside the vehicle. That meant nothing then, because the escape had yet to become public knowledge. Lawrence Dyke then discovers another police report from Stockton, California, about 100 miles east of Marin County. Tense music. Within a few hours of the reported auto theft, a man in Stockton claims he was forced off the road by 3 men driving a blue Chevrolet. Later, when that blue car is seen again, closer to Stockton with 3 people inside, it raises some suspicion. Lawrence. If this evidence is to be believed, the men may have survived the frigid waters and fled to Angel Island as planned. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers certainly could have gotten away with it. Isn't this a fun story to think about? I mean, here you have this impenetrable fortress, this supermax prison, and these 3 guys who figured a way out. They've spent their entire lives in and out of prisons and institutions, but they've survived. They fight the law with their intelligence and whatever else they can find around the prison, and they may win. No bodies have ever been created. No proof of their death has ever been presented. It remains one of the biggest mysteries of the 20th century, and everyone latches onto it because they enjoy seeing an underdog triumph.